Okay, we are we're at the end of another book. It's really pretty interesting to have done this again. This is the fourth book that we've done consistently, and it's gone by. So I guess now, right? So it went fast in time. We already have to start thinking about the next book, and that's going to be something I'm going to be really considering today after we finish this. It's going to be what is going to flow properly with what we're doing right now, and where do we need to take this. I want to say there's some other preliminary books, but a treatise on the seven rays is something that encompasses just so much. And esoteric psychology, I was thinking maybe the place to start. So anyway, we'll see what happens. So this is the end of Glamour, and what a book it has been. And it's just amazing. And I had read it before, and this time it was so much different. Everything is so much different after these things coming together and synthesizing and the puzzle pieces getting pulled together through the evocation process, and it's just amazing. So let's go ahead and finish this. Thanks for following along. Hope you are getting as much out of these as I am, and we're going to keep this going. The technique of fusion. In this, our final point, we are concerned with the control, constant and unremitting, of the soul over the personality. We are therefore concerned with the stage of initiation, which brings to an end the path of development for humanity and inaugurates a cycle of existence of which we know and can know nothing, except that the liberated master then begins to function in a dual manner as a member of the hierarchy, cooperating with the plan and occupied with the salvaging of humanity, and secondly, as a disciple of Sanat Kumara. The task of Sanat Kumara in relation to the masters is to prepare them to tread the way of the higher evolution. When this becomes possible, the shift of the spiritual attention, I use this inadequate word for lack of a better one, is away from the soul and the angel of the presence to the mysterious presence itself. It has hitherto only been sensed and dimly visioned. The master, freed from the 3 and 5 worlds of human and so-called superhuman evolution, has now the full gifts of omnipresence and omniscience. He is aware of the underlying unity brought about by the factual nature of the one life and being who pervades all manifestation. He is aware of the underlying unity brought about by the factual nature of the one life and being who pervades all manifestation. He has also mastered all possible techniques and modes and methods of activity, of control, and of fusion. But having developed those capacities, he now becomes faintly aware of that which conditions the one being and senses energies and contacts which are extraplanetary and of which he has hitherto been totally unaware. Knowledge comes to him Knowledge comes to him after the fifth initiation. Oh man, what's up to? He now becomes faintly aware of that which conditions the one being and senses energies and context, which are extraplanetary and of which he has hitherto been totally unaware. Okay, knowledge of these extraplanetary energies and contexts begins to come to him after the fifth initiation. Before him lies the attainment of a still higher range of perceptions. And in order to garner the reward of those possible contacts, he has to master techniques and methods of development which will make him omnipotent and therefore expressive of the highest of the three divine aspects. This development will put into his grasp potencies and experiences which can only be manipulated and understood through the scientific activity of the will, and this must be implemented from a point of tension, focused in whatever is meant by the word monad, or our Father in heaven. Do you know what that means, my brother? This development, let's see if we know what this means. This development will put into his grasp potencies and experiences which can only be manipulated and understood through the scientific activity of the will, which is the first aspect of the first ray of life of the Trinity, I guess you could say. The will, and this must be implemented from a point of tension, focused in whatever is meant by the word monad. Okay, tension focused in the monad. Scientific activity of the will, implemented from a point of tension, focused in the monad. Do you understand what that means, my brother? I am sure that you do not. Only the masters of the wisdom have any appreciation of these final unfoldments, and then only in the sense of the willful aspiration, a phase of aspiration which is characterized by the conscious will, just as the aspiration of the disciple is characterized by sublimated desire. Yeah, no, I mean, that makes sense. Of course, I mean, this is way beyond our experience right now, but nevertheless, being that it was presented to us in that way, we know that this is good for us to consider. Right. So even though we don't know these things yet, it's beneficial to absorb this and see where the road goes. These things are, however, beyond the comprehension of the average disciple. Their sole value is to depict the unending opportunity. Oh, excuse me. Oh. Their sole value is to depict the unending opportunity which presents itself at every stage and point of crisis upon the everlasting way. And we're on a journey that never ends here, the unending opportunity which presents itself at every stage and point of crisis upon the everlasting way. Man, is that unbelievable, the everlasting way with a capital W. Now this is interesting section here. Conscious will, characterized by the conscious will, just as the aspiration of the disciple is characterized by the sublimated desire. And that in itself, the sublimation process Again, it's kind of sounds like precipitation or, absorption from one perspective, and then all these things, make sense. And then we have willful aspiration. Willful aspiration. So we could, this has given us an idea of where this goes, what we're working on now and where, we're headed. Second here. Okay. We are concerned at this time with the great point of crisis which faces the disciple when he attempts to resolve the final pair of opposites prior to certain major initiations. This is the confronting. This is the confronting the personality by the angel of the presence. This is the confronting of the personality by the angel of the presence. There's no need for me to define the two aspects of the disciple's nature. That is what they essentially are. You have been told and have known that the dweller upon the threshold is the fully developed personality, the sum total of all the past and the composite presentation upon the physical plane of all unresolved problems, all undeclared desires, all latent characteristics and qualities, all phases of thought and of self-will, all potencies and ancient habits of any of the three bodies, both good and bad. These in their totality, that is, I got to tell you, man, like imagine that you're sitting here right now as we're reading this. And what you have right now, this is kind of what passed through my mind, is what you have now. This is it. You're standing at the end of this. You're done. There's nothing more needed, essentially. And what you have what you have is what you have in regards to the personality. This is you. You're never changing, essentially, from this personality. And you have all of it with you, all of your past, both good and bad, all your ancient habits, all your undeclared desires, unresolved problems, latent characteristics and qualities, all phases of thought and of self-will, all potencies, and that's all right here, right now, and that's where we're moving on from. These, in their totality, are brought to the surface of consciousness, and ultimately, this is what we are at any given point in time, right? I mean, that's what we are up till that point. Are brought to the surface of consciousness. They're to be dealt with in such a way that their control is broken, and we're looking at it, and you have to let go of it. The disciple is then free to take the final initiations. This process is not consummated in one particular facing of the two antagonistic forces. It is a threefold process covering each of the three periods before the first three initiations, or from the angle of the hierarchy, before the two initiations of the threshold and the first major initiation, transfiguration. For many lives, the disciple has been dwelling upon the threshold. He himself is the dweller. Behind the slowly opening door, he senses life, energy, spiritual embodiment, and the fact of the angel. Between him and that door is a burning ground. This he faces, and this he knows he has to cross if he seeks to pass through the door. The question for him to answer is whether his will to achieve is strong enough for him to submit his personal lower self to the fires of the final purification. The personal self is now very highly developed. It is a useful instrument which the soul can use. It is a highly trained agent for service. It is essentially a piece of adequate and useful equipment. It has, however, its points of weakness which are liable at any time to present points of crisis. It has likewise its points of strength which can be transmuted with relative ease into points of tension. On the whole, it is a dependable instrument and one which can render good service. Can it and should it be sacrificed to that, esoterically speaking? Can it and should it be sacrificed so that, esoterically speaking, its life is lost and in its place consecration and devotion are substituted? This is a hard problem for all disciples to solve, to understand, and to make effectively practical. Only by crossing the burning ground 3 successive times are all impediments to the free use of the will destroyed. Only by crossing the burning ground 3 successive times are all impediments to the free use of the will destroyed. Free use of the will. Well, this is the real free will that we're talking about here. This is life more abundantly. The relation between the angel and the dweller must be released by means of the will to full expression. I here refer to the spiritual will and to its 3 aspects, which must be brought into play before the divine will can begin to control. The disciple brings the 2 aspects of his nature together in full consciousness and with clear intention through a planned act of the will. And this act produces a point of tension in the center of the burning ground wherein the 2 can meet, as the ancient archives put it. I'm going to read this again. The disciple brings the 2 aspects of his nature together in full consciousness, the angel and the dweller, and with clear intention through a planned act of the will. And this act produces a point of tension. Okay, we have an integrated personality, I want to say, right? Is that what we're talking about here? It's my gift. And the center of the burning ground, where the 2 can meet, just the Ajna Center, as the ancient archives put it. And please don't quote me on that, but that's I'm just pondering here. I would call your attention to the fact that it is at a midway point that the greatest submission of the lower to the higher takes place. It does not happen when the disciple hovers uncertainly upon the periphery of the burning ground or when he stands before the door with the burning ground experience behind him. The essential point of crisis producing the needed point of tension is the result of the invocative decision of the personality, which in time produces an evocative response from the angel. The two factors involved, and forget not, my brother, that all this takes place within the field of consciousness of the disciple. The two factors involved move together and towards each other. And in the center of the burning ground, they meet. And then the lesser light, a true light in its own right of the personality, is absorbed into the greater light of the angel or soul. The angel therefore occultly obliterates the dweller, who becomes lost to sight in the radiant aura of the angel. This has been symbolically portrayed for us in the picture book of the heavens, when, according to the Catholic festivals, the Assumption of the Virgin takes place, and the constellation Virgo is lost to sight in the radiance of the sun. And there you have the three factors: the Virgin, the Sun, and the Earth. The Virgin, material form, personality, or the dweller. The Sun, spiritual nature, soul, or angel. And the Earth, aspiring man, or the disciple. Personality remains. It still exists, but it is seen no more as of old. The light of the angel envelops it. The burning ground has done its work, and the personality is now nothing more or less than the purified shell or form for which the light, the radiance, the quality, and the characteristics of the angel can shine. It is a fusion of lights, with the stronger and the more powerful obliterating the lesser. How has this been brought about? I refer not here to the preparation of the dweller on the threshold for this great event, or to the aeon of disciplining, of preparation, of experiment, and of experience from life to life, which has made this consummating event possible and successful. The two aspects in man can only meet in full power and with intention and finality when illusion can no longer control the mind. When glamour has lost all power to veil, and when the forces of Maya can no longer hinder. Discrimination, dispassion, and indifference have produced the dispelling, through focused light, the dissipating potency of distributed light and the directing power of light energy. Only 5 recognitions now control the disciple. 1, the fact of his discipleship. 2, the perception of the angel, waiting and dynamic. 3, the invocative appeal of the dweller on the threshold. 4, the necessity to use the will in a new and different manner. And 5, the need to cross the burning ground. The issues are now entirely clear. It is a question of timing and of decision. I would remind you that in all these processes, it is the disciple who, in full consciousness, acts. He initiates all the processes himself. It is not the angel or the dweller, but the spiritual man himself who has to employ the will and take definite forward-moving action. Once the disciple has taken the necessary steps and moved irrevocably forward, the response of the angel is sure, automatic, and all-enveloping. Complete obliteration of the personal self in 3 successive stages is the immediate and normal result. It was to this that John the Baptist referred when he said, "He shall increase, but I must decrease." When he spoke these words, he spoke as a disciple prior to the second initiation of the threshold. The occult waxing and waning is portrayed for us in the phases of the moon and for the planet as a whole in the sign Gemini, where the light of one of the twins is slowly dimming and the light of the other is gaining intensity. When this occult obliteration has taken place, what then is the destiny of the disciple? It is complete control by the soul, and this, in practice, connotes group realization, group work, group service, and eventually group initiation. With these developments, it is not my intent to deal, for I have covered much of these matters in my other books. Here I have been dealing in this short elucidation with the effects that substances and the substantial forces found in the 3 worlds produce in the disciple, and as they affect the aspirant, produce in the disciple and as they affect the aspirant. I have not considered the problem of glamour, illusion, and Maya from the angle of average man. The latter is necessarily immersed in them, and under their constant impact, he passes his life. By their means, he learns. He is not at the point where he seeks deliverance from them, as does the man upon the path. I have, therefore, considered the problem from the angle of the disciples and aspirants. From the way opens up. From them, the way opens up. And for them comes the conscious recognition of the light. The need for the service of men and women, free from illusion and glamour, has never been so dramatically present as it is today, and it is for these potential servers of a desperate necessity that I have written. That the angel of the presence may make his nearness felt and inspire you to pass courageously through the fires of the burning ground is my earnest prayer. That the fact of the presence may be sensed by you and lead you to greater activity once the burning ground is passed is my deepest wish for you. And that the light may shine upon your way and bring a certain and assured consummation of all the travail and struggle which has characterized your way of life is my heart's desire for you. To more active and steady enterprise I call you. And that was written by the master. Well, friends, that was very, if we allow this section to be, I want to say there's a lot of recognition in that. there's a lot of recognition in this tiny little portion here, this last portion. And it's very telling for us who are working through these stages on our way into more active and steady enterprise, I guess. Just beautiful and thankful for this book. And I hope you get as much out of it as I have this time. And we'll do it. I'm thinking that we'll do it again. I imagine the next time we read this, it will be even, it changes every time we read it. So it'll be even that much more powerful. And all of these, we absorbed it. Now, I'm not saying the work that we just did isn't important. It was very important. It's important. It's going to help us build in the pieces to these other books too. Combined with the treatise on white magic, I've found that these two books really are something very special. And I'm not taking it away from any of the other books by any stretch of the imagination. But for this point, before the third initiation, I want to say, for those working, for us working towards the higher initiation, towards this process, right, to escape, towards to the liberation. There's these two books are very powerful. So I would encourage everyone to read it again, get the book and read these books. And we're going to see where we go from here. I'm going to spend the rest of the day really thinking about the next book that we're going to get into. And I say this, I'm sure whatever it's going to be is going to be perfect. But it would be great for it to flow along best with this. In my experience right now, I was curious about which book I was going to read before, is what I'm saying. We read Initiation Human and Solar, and then I was curious about where are we going to go from here? Well, Glamour, I had read Glamour, I knew Glamour was very important. And I was curious. I was like, well, I'm not sure where to go. And then we read this, and it's like, of course, this is where we're going to go. So whatever we read next, I'm certain we're going to know. It's going to be like, oh, of course, this was the right book. But it's just interesting because I don't know exactly which one it's going to be in this instant. But we'll find out. All right. Well, maybe we'll do a short recap of this book and move on. Thanks for following along. I say thanks, but ultimately, if you're following along with this book at this point, I would assume that you are well on your way and be blessed on the path. All right. We'll see you soon.